Well, what did you have for your best song?
This was tough. This one
Yes.
was really,
Yeah.
really tough. And I have to bring two to the table and almost like talk it out with you. Olivia Rodrigo took over the world with the song Driver's License.
Mm-hmm.
It was a song that my 30-something ass and a 16-year-old could both relate to. You talk about Taylor Swift speaks to the 16-year-old girl inside of every woman. Olivia Rodrigo speaks to everybody. And I know I called that the lowest common denominator, but it doesn't count when it's someone I like. And I like Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah.
In this case,
True.
it's a good thing.
The distinction is important.
Absolutely. You know, it's not semantics, folks. It's important. It's an important part of it. And you know, you can argue whether or not Vampire, which is this pick, took over the world the way that Driver's License did. And I really thought about it, and I'm like, I think it did. I think it managed to hit that same level just because people were anticipating Olivia Rodrigo this time. So not only did she match the quality and like the virality of it, but it caught on. She nailed it. She smushed it. She understood the assignment. So even just saying that without saying my other pick, I'm all goosed up. So I think it's Vampire.
Well,
but the other one,
you're right. I also chose Vampire.
Did you really?
I sure did.
Well, okay, so this makes me feel good. So then I guess mine is truly Vampire because my other one was Billie Eilish. What was I made for?
So Billie Eilish, yeah, that one, that you could say is your heart pick. Because that was a big song, but I don't know if it was as like impactful, I guess, as the Vampire song was. I think just because Olivia Rodrigo already had that kind of cachet as like a viral artist, because that's how Driver's License kicked off, and then Sour came out and was an absolute world beater of an album. So people like saw Guts coming, and I think her like even fulfilling the expectations and surpassing them in a lot of ways. I think even just meeting those expectations is surpassing them when she came out with Guts. I think the amount of times you heard Vampire on the radio, I heard it at work. I heard it in every store I would go into. If I was listening to the radio, it was on. It was on my top songs of the year list. I mean, it's just like it was kind of everywhere, and it reached more places, and I didn't hear the Billie Eilish song quite as much. So I think if it's a matter of like which took over more, I do get the feeling it was Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo.
Well, and I think the difference maker is I'm in love with a TikToker, and that Billie Eilish song is everywhere, and it's so sad. And I look at it, and I'm like, Barbie was an impactful movie. It's kind of an impactful song, clearly, but does that mean it was the best? It might have been the most ubiquitous, but Vampire. The only thing that bothers me is the radio edits where it's like bloodsucker fame hugger and stuff like that. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, I feel like when it comes to that stuff, you have to go full like TV edit version of Big Lebowski. This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps kind of thing. You can't go like a word adjacent. You know what I mean? You can't do that because it never has the same impact. You got to come up with a way different thing to say there. You got just out of left field.
Yeah, really get the people confused and excited all at once. This is a big opportunity.
Yeah.
They blew it.
I had a secondary for like my heart pick song of the year was Francesca by Hozier. That song just bangs. That song goes. That album goes. It really just, that's the one where it's, when I think of the song this year, that the first time I heard it, I was like, damn, it was that one. That when he hits that big chorus the first time and you really hear that, like that big Hozier scream. Love it. Absolutely love that song. I think Vampire is like the head pick, that is the song of the year. Would not be surprised to see that win her a bunch of awards as well as that album. But my heart pick, my guy Hozier.
Yeah, and that's he is a wicked weirdo. And the interesting thing about this year's awards, you'll notice someone I haven't mentioned yet. That's uncharacteristic of me. And I won't spoil it for the people. And no, it's not Frank Zappa. But yeah, there were like the Hozier album I remember really, really enjoying, and there's
Mhm.
just like no place for it in my ranking system because
Mhm.
while I enjoyed it, it didn't like pop off the page the way some other things did. But that really does, in retrospect, kind of show me what a great year we had. There was
Yeah.
a moment where I was like, I don't know, man, we're not really getting any like big heavy hitters, lay your nuts on the table type albums.
The last
But
couple
that's not
months have
true.
been yeah, the last couple months have been some big swanging dicks that we've been covering on this show.
We've been crushing and smushing,
Yeah.
and I think it just speaks to the level of talent in the league that some of these things don't even get
Mhm.
mentioned.
Yeah, the parody
Um,
is insane this year.
yes, I would agree.
Well, I think we move on to the best and worst artists of the year. And I'm curious who your worst artist is going to be because mine I'm pretty confident in, but I'm curious what yours is going to be.
Okay, you want me to go first?
Yes.
I had a lot of things I could have picked. I
Too many.
briefly, one would say too many. Briefly considered giving the nod to Post Malone. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I think he very genuinely took a swing. I think he wasn't resting on his laurels. He tried very big and he thus failed very big. Reach for the stars because if you miss, you will fall on the moon or whatever that fucking bullshit thing is. That is not what he did here. He reached for the stars and he tripped and skinned his knee on the blacktop.
Mhm,
But I respect the effort. So
mhm.
take him off the board. You look at Oliver Anthony. That's like he did this one thing and he really is like a harmless punchline in the grand scheme of things. I also like the song absent the fact that its politics are wildly confused and the guy
Mhm.
delivering it is not the like centrist
Yeah.
Jesus that everybody thinks he is. I'm not sure the feller's that bright. He might be doing a little swimming in his own gene pool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a little that pool's getting a little shallow, I think.
God, if you're 5'3" and you have web toes,
If
uh,
he didn't mention anybody's family tree being a straight line like his is, but that's you got to look in the mirror sometimes, you know.
that'll be in the follow-up record.
Yeah.
But I couldn't, so I really couldn't do that to him. But I went for someone's who should know better. You should know when to hold them and when to fold them. You should know what's good and what's bad at this point. You should know what's a shameless cash grab versus like an actual artistic endeavor. And I think these people just didn't care. And maybe it's because they're too old and borderline fossilized to care. But my worst artist of the year is the Rolling Stones.
Ooh, that's a fair pick. I think that's an absolutely fair pick, given their status in the music industry. And I really, yeah, I think the Rolling Stones need to just put it to bed. Keep playing your like legacy shows, whatever, but just put it to bed. Clearly the boy's tired.
You don't have it
Yeah, yeah. They
anymore.
well, they haven't in some would say since the 80s. So, and I think some would be right. My worst artist this year, and this was one of the easiest slam dunk picks I think I've ever had on these award shows. Certainly on this year's list, this was the first one that popped into my head, and I had no good argument for anybody otherwise. And it was Kesha. I thought that album was horrendous. I think she was an exciting artist. I was excited for Gag Order, and it was terrible. Like there was really, I could not really think of anything that redeeming for it. I guess you could go back to the episode that we did on it, and maybe there was a song or two that I liked. But I really just as the time went on after that album, and then as I've like had more time and heard like Timber and TikTok on the radio and stuff, and I'm like, man, that's what I wanted from this album. I just wanted bangers, and I didn't get a single one.
Well, Jeff, didn't you read the comments on the video? Clearly, we're
Yeah,
just a bunch of dumb metalheads who don't
yeah,
understand the conceptual greatness of this because apparently suffering automatically makes your art good. I did
yeah.
not know that, but I'm too stupid to understand Kesha. So that's a hell of a pick, Jeff.
Yeah, it was an easy slam dunk. I was like, nobody deserves it like Kesha deserves it this year for that one.
Nobody does it better.
Hopefully, I do. I do have faith that she's going to turn it around at some point and give us those bangers again. And I sincerely, sincerely hope so. But something that I think people are going to be a lot more optimistic about is our best artist picks. And I don't know if we're going to match up on this one, but I have a feeling we're both going to have good ones. Mine for this one, and I thought of just kind of overall impact on the industry, just like overall presence, the quality of the work released. And I felt like there was no other option than Olivia Rodrigo for my artist of the year.
Fair enough. I can respect the hell out of that. I went in a different direction. I picked SZA.
Also, it could have like strong consideration. If there's maybe for me, there was probably three. I didn't really consider SZA, I guess, as much as I should have, but it was the ones I considered was Olivia Rodrigo and Dua Lipa. And because Dua Lipa had Dance the Night and Houdini, who have both sold a fucking zillion copies at this point, and she didn't even release an album this year. So she's been everywhere. She's coming out in a movie. But then I was like, you know what? I feel like you've got to release like an album the year that if you're going to get picked as artist of the year. So Olivia Rodrigo met the criteria. She was just on SNL. Like she's been kind of everywhere, just like she was when she released Sour. So I think for me, Olivia Rodrigo was the standard pick. But if you're talking about less of like the social impact and more of the quality of the work, I do think SZA deserves strong consideration as
Yeah,
artist of the
SOS.
year. Yeah.
SOS was a wagon.
Mm-hmm.
That thing was a wagon. Um, and I just think even before, like the fact that they had to take control, literally and figuratively, away from SZA when she was making that album, because she was just obsessively tweaking it, trying to get it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
A Steely Dan level perfectionist in an awesome creative hip hop artist. I was dead before the ship even sank, Jeff.
Yeah, that's I feel like those are two, Olivia Rodrigo or SZA, whichever way you go with that. I think you're getting some fantastic artists. Check out both of their albums. I mean, SOS by SZA on a lot of people's best albums of the year list. I'd say you'd be so, unless the category is like something a genre very specific about best albums of the year, you're probably going to see a lot of SZA on there. But that does bring us, Alex, to what everybody's here for. It's what we're here for every week is we listen to albums. An artist comes out with an album, we give it a shot, we listen to it, we give it a fair rating. So it only makes sense that we're going to name a best and worst album of the year. And we'll keep it consistent. We'll start with worst album. And mine, again, a little bit of a spoiler earlier, was Gag Order by Kesha. I just don't know if there was a worse one for me this year. Hackney Diamonds was certainly pretty bad. That Lemon Twigs album was pretty bad for
No.
me. But none of them reached the level of disappointment and anger caused to me than that Kesha album.
Yeah, Gag Order was a dog. Gag Order was a dog. Um, but the thing is, there was one that really irked me and made me loathe it more. And I don't wish any ill will towards the artist, but it's Austin by Post Malone.
Mm-hmm.
That is the worst thing I think we've listened to on the show. As bad as Hackney Diamonds was, as insipid as like Pink Friday 2 was, like these were bad. These were clunkers for me. Gag Order, clunker. There was an interesting badness to Austin, almost so bad that it's too interesting to call the worst because you theoretically get something out of it, but it's just it's such a wild misfire. It's like when it's like David Lynch's Dune. You pour all of this time and money and all these resources into something to just make crap.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nightmare. And Austin was that nightmare for me. And I'm sorry, Posty, but it is what it is. It's not personal. It's just business.
Yeah. And I really would never, I wouldn't argue that one, given the albums that we got this year. I mean, it was stacked. When you go through the list of the albums we covered this year, it was absolutely stacked with a lot more options for the best of categories than there was for the worst of categories, which is a great thing. It means that we got lucky in what we picked, because it's never that much fun listening to stuff we don't like. It's nice once in a while to remind yourself of what could be, and you don't get so used to the good albums that you take them for granted. But my most exciting part of this show every year is talking about our best album picks. Um, my heart pick, I'll start with that one, and it's an artist I mentioned earlier. Once again, my heart pick for best album of the year was the Unreal Unearth album from Hozier. I
Mm.
continue to rock that album. It continues to get even better every time I listen to it. I already loved Hozier, and I think if you already were a Hozier fan, this album probably just hit all the right notes. Um, I think it is good enough to get somebody into Hozier. Like, I was really glad to hear that you liked it, because I really do think he's different. He's like that kind of Doja Cat level different, where he's going to do some things that are unexpected. He's going to do, like, the amount of traditional music he does, like traditional, Irish music that he incorporates. It's the same thing that, like, System of a Down would do with, like, Armenian folk music. You wouldn't even know that you're, like, hearing it, but the drum beats, it might be the instruments used are traditional ones. And I think he does such a good job at kind of fleshing everything out so fully and telling you this story. I love that album. I listened to it again today, just while I was cleaning, because it's just, well, it's on. I love it. It's so engaging. And for my heart pick, that's absolutely my album of the year.
That's your heart pick.
Yes.
So you're sitting on another one.
Oh, yes.
Okay. You want me to go or you want to go?
Well, if you have a heart pick, if you have your one that you chose for album of the year, we can jump right into that.
I got one and only that
Okay.
was an obvious standout for me. And I got to tell you, it wasn't Mitski. Not that I didn't love that
Yeah.
album. Look, I finished in the top 1% of the top 1% of Mitski listeners for the year. Okay. I am eligible for some kind of government assistance based on some kind of disorder that we top Mitski fans have, something that keeps us coming back. So obviously I loved it, but I did pick Laurel Hell last year, and that's not a reason not to pick something. If it's quality, it's quality. If you love it, you love it.
Mhm.
Do it. But the fact of the matter is, I did think that my actual pick was better.
Mhm.
I think it started the year off great. It moved the needle for me in a big way. It was a triumphant return, and it was just incredibly well done, worth the 5-year wait. I think like 5 to 7 years, worth the wait. My pick is SZA, SOS.
Yeah. And I think that is one of my head picks. I had a tie. I just could not decide between two. It was SOS and Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. So those two albums, to me, they occupy the same space, where, obviously Olivia Rodrigo is a lot more focused on, like, the pop and, like, pop rock, and, like, a lot more in a narrower lane than SZA keeps herself in. I think SOS is a masterpiece of, like, a true artist creating something that's just fully unique, fully theirs, and something you haven't heard before. I think with Olivia Rodrigo, it's, there's very much those structures, like, pop song structures that she stays within, but she just does those so well that you have so many flashes in the pan. You have so many people that can, like, understand what pop music is, understand, like, the science behind it, how it hits the ears, and they'll play the right beats per minute. They'll play the right kind of notes. They'll use major chords instead of minor chords to make sure it sounds brighter and peppier. But there's something oftentimes missing from music like that, and Olivia Rodrigo has it. Whatever that is, a song like Vampire, a lot of people could have sang that. That could have been a Selena Gomez song. That could have been a Taylor Swift song. But the fact that Olivia Rodrigo sings it, I feel like she just is so good. The level of emotional connection that SZA can create with her music that's so, like, fully unique and fully hers is the same level of connection that Olivia Rodrigo can create within her music that I think Dua Lipa does with her music. It's on that level of, like, a future nostalgia album where it sounds so familiar. All these structures sound so familiar, but it's exciting. It's new. There's just something else to it that I can't really quantify, and I'm not sure people can. I think it just has to do with who is presenting it. And I think both SZA and Olivia Rodrigo this year have established themselves as two of the like premier artists of this generation.
And I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens at the Grammys.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, it's lady dominated this year, and there's a lot of great stuff flying around. I will be curious to see what happens for SZA, curious to see what happens for Olivia Rodrigo. I think, like you said, they had titanic years in their own right. I think SZA was able to explore different sounds and dip into different genres, like working with Phoebe Bridgers and making Phoebe Bridgers kind of get a little Phoebe into SZA, and SZA got a little bit of her SZA into Phoebe's Phoebe, if you know what I'm saying. But it meshed well. It was a lot of different choices that weren't extreme swings. It was a lot of like varied subject matter and varied approaches to it, versus Olivia Rodrigo, who just came out with a straight up pop punk bullet. It's got its tender moments, it's got its ballads. I mean, Vampire is a power ballad. But it is a true blue pop punk album, which I know you're a sucker for. I'm a sucker for. Our
Mm-hmm.
friend group falls easily for pop punk, and this just scratched a real itch. And I think 100% is worth being considered an album of the year pick. So why don't we assign that to you, since I picked SZA? Then we can have our cake and eat it too.
Yes, sir. And if there's one thing that's clear, is we do love to eat our cake. But it's been, so that does it for the awards, for the accolades for this show, for this year. We'll see y'all in a few weeks, but it has been a really fantastic year. So hopefully 2024 packs as big of a punch as 2023 did. I mean, we had some fantastic artists. Let us know down there in the comments, what you thought was the best album of the year. If there's something coming out at the beginning of the year that you think we need to take a look at, we'll make sure we do that for you. So, Alex, are there any closing thoughts for the year for you?
Well, just remember that we take a little breaky poo around this time, couple weeks off, where you'll still be getting premium content at youtube.com/c/outonthatline. There will still be stuff coming. Don't worry. But I want to make an on-air promise that I hope Jeff, you, and all the listeners will make me stick to, which is to really use this show as more of a creative outlet in 2024. It's one of my resolutions, is when we come back, it's not that I didn't try. It's just that I didn't make time to try. No, I didn't make time to like really dig into everything that this channel could be. And, I'm at a point where I'm very settled into like a good place in my life, a good groove. I'm doing good in the game. I'm doing good in life. It's time to use this as like a true creative outlet to its like true potential. So that's my guarantee in 2024. This has been a year of hard lessons, moldy basements, freezing basements, dogs barking in unity. We've had it all, folks. We've really experienced a lot of, year over year growth. It's hard to quantify, but we've lived, laughed, and loved all of it with you. We wouldn't have it any other way. Let's double our fan base in the next year. What do you say, folks? That's all I have to say. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. Yes, it's been, been a great year. It's been great riding along with all these albums with you folks. The reaction videos, make sure you keep letting us know what you want to hear. And we'll see you next year.